joining us. You are just in time for the very first interview that we have for you this Tuesday morning, a day that we have set aside right here on Good Morning Kenya to talk matters women as we seek to bring up a better generation of women who believe in themselves, women who have the energy, the strength and the information to go for what they want and become who they really want. Every Tuesday we bring people that you'd like to meet personally to sit here and talk about their journey, talk about some of the experiences and lessons they've gathered in what they do, for you to learn and for you to be inspired. And we hope that wherever you're watching, we are changing your life in one way or the other. Do communicate with us in case we are doing that at Safin_Aching on Twitter, Safin Aching on Facebook, at KBC Television is our official Twitter handle. The hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. We'd like to know how this program is, changing your life. And today we want to focus on women in agriculture. They've always said agriculture is the backbone of the economy. Kenya actually depends on agriculture in a very big way. We have so many farmers who contribute to a larger percentage in the economy of this particular country. And among these farmers, we are talking today about that woman in a rural area, for example, who is carrying a baby on her back and going to the farm each and every morning, doing what she does best. At the end of the day, expecting to get something to put on the table. But then again, what are the gaps in between? Are women empowered to know how they can transform the ordinary ways of farming into something that can become financially viable for themselves, to make them independent, and to make them, just be able to earn money and become financially independent? Today, we want to talk about women in agriculture as we celebrate them that are doing so well in this particular sector, and also inspire somebody who is watching and wants to get into agriculture and know the nitty-gritties of succeeding when you want to be a farmer in Kenya. So join me for this conversation and much more. And allow me now to introduce my guest for the show this morning. It's a panel of three, and deliberately so, cutting across all spheres, from policy to a case study that will inspire you this morning. And allow me now introduce, let me start from sitting directly across that lady there. You remember how we had her just recently. Her name is Zaina Kanbai, the CEO of Merging Mundos. Merging Mundos, thank you so much. Doing a lot in terms of empowering women when it comes to the sector of agriculture. Then we have the CEC of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries from Nakuru County. That is Dr. Immaculate, let me get the name, Immaculate Minor. Dr. Immaculate Minor is the CEC of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries. And we have the national award-winning farmer in Kenya in the women's category. If you want a good example that you can learn from, she's sitting right next to me. Her name is Judy Wangeshi. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me this morning. And a very important conversation that we should be having at such a time when you talk about matters women. People think that when you talk about issues affecting women, they are very limited. But if you look at it on a broader perspective, it can go all the way, all the way. And today we've decided to focus on the area of agriculture. And maybe to start us off, Waziri, I'd like to know, what's the status report when we talk about women in agriculture? We can talk about the national, picture, or a good example of Nakuru County. When you look at the number of women who are engaging in agriculture and succeeding at it, vis-a-vis the men or vis-a-vis the general population, what can you share with us this morning?
Clearly, we talk of agriculture as the backbone of our economy.
Yes.
And when we look at that background, break it down, we find that at the center of that, what we call the backbone, are women. Our agriculture sector is very women-centered. If you look at any farming activity anywhere in this country, you'll find women at the center of that activity. So by and large, agriculture in Kenya is very women-centered, but more often on the production side. You find that when you look at a whole value chain from production to the table, it will be very heavy led on women on the lower end, where production happens, where most of the work is happening. But as you progress upwards to where the money is being made, where trade is happening, where commercialization is happening, the ratio reduces progressively. When you look at the very top in terms of policy making, again, it gets even worse. There are very few women in policy making around agriculture in the country. So By and large, women are at the center of the food systems in Kenya, but we have serious gaps in the way that their activities are articulated. We do not have, in my mind, a statistic, a clear statistic that says the exact number of women in agriculture. There may be sporadic studies here and there, but a national statistic
We have nothing
that tells
to that
us
effect.
that how many women we have in agriculture and where in the value chain they are involved and how their contribution actually, what that contribution means for the economy. I don't think we've articulated that yet.
We do not have anything to that effect. And that is why you're here, to paint a picture of exactly what is happening and how women are playing a role in matters agriculture. Thank you so much. But then again, Zina, she has said that yes, we have women who are doing something and something that is of value in this sector of agriculture, but we do not seem to be understanding or even focusing on that. So my question to you would be, why do you think today, as we sit here, it's important for us to have that dynamic shift to start focusing on women and agriculture? Why should we go in that sector and really turn it upside down and focus on all the issues that come with it?
Okay, perfect. First and foremost, thank you so much for having us on the show. And I want to congratulate you again for the kind of program that you're putting together. It's of value, it brings transformation, and it brings quality. And my second time being here, I love the way that this whole setup is established. So KBC has really impressed me.
Thank
so
you
congratulations.
So much. Thank you so much.
Let me start with some of the, well, actually, let me say something about myself to dispel some myths.
All right.
I am Kenyan, born and raised Kenyan. Proudly African. I bear that responsibility of being African wherever I am in the world through my values. And this is exactly why we're sitting here today, being an African woman and talking about, well, what is the contribution and the power of an African woman in the world? So let's bring that to agribusiness and let's look at some of the statistics. Why women and why agriculture? We know that today there are about 1 billion agricultural laborers in the world, and that about 42% of those laborers are women. So 42% are producing 60 to 80% of the world's food. And we know that there are certain obstacles which women in particular, or the majority of the people focusing on food production, are facing. Obstacles such as access to affordable technology and innovation, access to government extension service, access to emotional support, and access to financial organization. And we know that if we start focusing on rural women particularly, then we can actually increase the global GDP by $28 billion from agricultural production alone. 28 billion US dollars.
Wow.
And recently the World Bank, the African Development Bank announced that Africa's agribusiness sector will go up to 1 trillion US dollars by the year 2030.
Wow.
So there's huge potential. So as we close the gap, as we look to solving the problems in the obstacles from emotional support to innovation and extension services, we have a chance to reduce the number of hungry people in the world by about 150 million people. And the bulk of this responsibility, as the world is currently showing and the data suggests, falls on women.
On women.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful picture you have painted right there. And we'll get to the practical aspect of it now. These gaps, exactly how do we practically, get rid of them and make sure that we get to that beautiful space that you have, shared with us this morning. But Judy, she has said, the bulk of these responsibilities rest on our shoulders as women, especially women who are in agriculture like yourself. We'll talk about how you earned that national recognition later, but I know you have a story of how you started. Tell me a bit about whether you feel that woman who is in some rural area somewhere, a woman who wakes up early in the morning, carrying maybe a child on her back, spending hours in the farm, just working and working and working. Has she been appreciated to the level that satisfy you women in this industry that, yes, this country recognizes the efforts of that woman? Has she been appreciated?
No. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Judy Jenga from Naivasha. I've been working in a business. From business, I shifted to a farmer. And I can say, and I can tell women, don't wait for anybody to recognize you. It is you yourself to know yourself and to determine what you want to do. You yourself. If you say you are going to do this, you do. And I do tell women to add themselves value. Add yourself value. Work hard. Wake up early. Don't look anybody.
Just do what you do best.
You do what you do best. And you are going to achieve the goal. Because I have started, when I was young, I started with selling cabbages in the market, Naivasha open air market. After that, selling tomatoes. From tomatoes, because I was buying tomatoes from the farms, I see I'm losing a lot of money when buying to the farmers. So I come up to an idea of planting my own vegetables. And from that day, now I can say the farming is the best thing. I can tell all women to join farming. Farming is very productive. There is a lot of money in the farming.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll seek to find out whether there is enough market for products. But yeah, you seem to be doing so well. So talking and saying that there is money in farming, you're coming from a point of understanding because you have been there for a while. But tell me the story. How did you end up becoming the national award winner, the best farmer in the women's category? What's the story here? There has to be a lot of effort and time that was invested in making that happen.
Yeah, there was a competition between women in agriculture, youth in agriculture, and disabled in agriculture.
Yes.
And when the officers of agriculture officers in my count, Akina Magoro, Sophia,
This is in Nakuru.
Yeah, this is Nakuru. When they come to my farm, they see this farm is doing well, and this mama is doing well. Now they tell me to fill the form, and when we went on the competition, they go all over Kenya, Women's wake up. There is no woman who has done job like me.
Okay, so this was a national competition.
It was national competition.
And you are, currently you are the best.
I'm the best winner.
Farmer when it comes, when I'm looking for a woman farmer, you are the best.
I'm the best.
Wow.
I'm the best in the farming because I've worked hard and I have struggled. And in farming, there is so many challenges. Also, unless uwe na moyo mugumu.
Ujikaze, ujikakamue.
Ujikakamue, ndio uweze kuendelea. Lakini ukifanya kazi kwa bidii, utapata. My farm is very smart. I've been planting tomatoes, onions, and cabbage. And the way I'm doing it, and the way I come to achieve the goal, it is because I'm planting 20,000 pieces of cabbages. But every week, I'm trying. Even if I fail, I make sure I plant 20,000 per every week. So even if you count when selling 20,000 pieces of cabbages as a woman at 20 shillings, or when the market is very nice, you can sell at 40, at 50.
That's double.
And now we are harvesting tomatoes. We are selling at 7,000 per one box. So if you come up and work hard,
just hold the microphone up. Yeah.
When you come up and you work hard, you're really going to get money.
All right. So it needs a lot of hard work and you have to get your hands dirty.
Yeah. And
to
then
work and make sure you earn that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have the program that is moving. So you see every day, every week, you have something. So all customers, all the farmers, all the peoples, they have wanakuwa na tumaini that there'll be food always
throughout.
throughout.
Okay. I'll come back to you later, but Dr. Immaculate, you look at, you know her story, and I know both you and Zaina, you interact with women like Judy on a regular basis. You go to the ground and you see what they are doing. And earlier I asked her whether that woman has been appreciated enough in terms of even the input, the farm input, in terms of even the output, the market availability, even awareness on how she can organize her business. Do we have that? Do we have that currently?
I would say yes and no. I'll say the no starts with the fact that most of the women who are doing an excellent job like Judy are not also the easiest to reach using our traditional extension systems. What do I mean? On a normal extension system as is currently formulated, we talk about the chief's baraza, we talk about calling meetings here and there, we talk about demand-driven extension services. Now, for a lady like Judy, who is very busy on the farm, who is actually running a business, she will most likely not have time to leave the farm to come to the chief's baraza to listen to whatever announcements you're doing from the Ministry of Agriculture. Yes. One of the lessons I've quickly learned in the county is, as we reach out to the farming community, I feel that we are not yet where we should be, even in terms of extension services. It's true that most of our extension services are not up to par, but it gets worse for people in agribusiness because our traditional extension systems are not necessarily sensitive to the needs of farmers like Judy. Farmers who have moved away from the traditional subsistence farming
and they want
to commercial farming. Judy is already commercialized. She's already at a level where most of our women and even most of the general farming community is not. And so to reach out that class of farmers is something that has not been well articulated in the general extension service delivery mechanism. And that, for me, is a big gap, because I feel that it is people like Judy who have already transitioned from subsistence to commercial farming who are going to take us to the zero hunger that we are looking forward to. It is not the farmer who is struggling to even understand her farming system. It is the farmer like Judy who already knows about how the marketing functions, a farmer who is already aware of the importance of scheduling the production, a farmer who is willing to spend to bring on extension service into her farm. A farmer who will pick up the phone, send a message, and ask direct question with confidence that I need this done, how can I get it done? A farmer who will leave the farm and go look for business, fill up contract with schools, fill up contracts with other areas where food is needed.
Is required,
Not every farmer has built that confidence. And as we think about policy, as we think about extension services, as we think about a dispensation towards zero hunger, this is the kind of farmer that we must be supporting.
So we should empower all women to go in this direction.
We should empower all women.
Just generally all farmers.
All farmers, really, to go in this direction. And that's a big, it's a tall order. Judy has said that a woman has to appreciate herself. You do not wait to be affirmed externally. You must affirm yourself internally. Most of our producers may not necessarily have that level of emotional maturity that I am fine, I can do this with or without external support. That is an area that is not well articulated anywhere, really. We don't usually, when we think, even when we come up with policy documents, we usually focus on production. We usually focus on inputs, like you mentioned. We focus on all these things, but hardly ever do we focus on the producer, on the person who is actually doing this work and who's going to make this change, and what her personal challenges are to be able to, what challenges she needs to overcome to be able to come up with the output that we are looking out for.
I think that's important. The reason I'm saying this is because that will help, now in tailoring the solution to meet the specific need of the individual, farmer, because each and every one of them have different challenges. A good example would be others have gone to school to the level where they can be able to understand some of these issues. Others have not gotten that privilege, but they still a lot of skill and a lot of talent that they have. So how do you tailor the solutions to meet the needs of each and every farmer?
That's right.
And when you talk about understanding yourself and working on the person, Zaina, that's where you come in. That area
Okay.
you describe it so beautifully. The inner leadership, the understanding the inner self. Yeah. Talk to us more about how that relates with farming. You talked even about emotional support. How do we bring the issue of self-awareness and subjects like emotional support with issues like agribusiness together in the same sentence? How does that work? How does that, support one another?
Okay. Well, let's put it into the context of agriculture, okay? Let's look at the model that we are actually, and when I say we, I'm talking about merging Mundos, which is our company. Mundos means worlds in Spanish, and merging Mundos literally means uniting worlds. And when we look at which worlds we're uniting, we're talking about Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. So a model, a framework in South-South cooperation. How do we apply a holistic framework to agribusiness? We look first at growing ourselves as individuals. Do I know who I am? Do I know what I'm for? Do I believe in myself? And starting with the fundamental questions of what's my value? And am I doing what I'm meant to be doing? And arriving, eventually it's a process, at a place of harmony within yourself where you're able to confidently express that. And that's what empowerment is. Empowerment is arriving at a place of confidence. So that self-confidence is translated into growing our enterprises. So then we bring in, and I say then, but we're working on these pillars in parallel. They're all happening simultaneously. Then we bring in an education in agripreneurship. And that means taking the farmer, growing the farmer from someone who only sees themselves as a producer to someone who also sees themselves as a risk taker in enterprise. So you put those two together and you become an educated and an empowered agripreneur. So education in affordable technology, education in basics in agriculture and business, learning business models, learning to run an enterprise. Once you've grown yourself and you've grown your enterprise, we talk about growing food, good quality food.
Quality, I like that word.
For our nation.
Yes.
And our nation currently has agriculture, agribusiness as a big 4 agenda.
Yes.
And we notice, as Waziri was saying and as Judy was indicating, that where we are able to empower women in self, in business, and in community leadership, bringing all that expertise to growing and producing quality together, we can contribute to the GDP of our nation.
And even achieving food security, a very strong pillar of what the government is pushing for right now.
That's true.
But I understand where both of you are coming from, Waziri and Zaina. There has been a gap in terms of a lot of awareness campaigns and empowerment campaigns are focusing on the results. Let's see something that you're doing, but they're not focusing on bringing up this person from the inside so that they do this thing willingly and understanding where they're going with it. We just show them this is where we want you to go, so go this direction. We don't care how you get there, we just want you to get there. You agree with that, Judy? And as we talk about this, probably I'd like to hear from you, the horse's mouth. What are some of the challenges that you think, let me be biased on women, what are some of the challenges that you think women in agriculture are facing today, that when we have policymakers and empowerment, agencies like Zaina today, you'd like them to know that as women in business, this is what we are facing. These are the areas that we want you to focus on, because at times people may speak for you as opposed to you speaking for yourself. So what are those challenges for you?
Challenges like if you look for like a crop, crop is 99% of water. So the big challenge here is water resources. Because like I can tell Waziri, when you go tell our governor, we need water. and you can do something with water, because you can drill so many boreholes that can supply water to the farmers. Like our area, we have water that is running from upper Kipkunyo area up to Lake Naivasha. That water is wasted for nothing. It can be hoarded and it can be used by all the farmers to do the farming.
That's true.
Challenges is water. Second thing is working facility. We need machine. Like me, Judy, I need machine so that it can make me move fast. I'm moving very slowly because I don't have machine. I'm using hands to do my cultivation. That's the most challenge. Also, when we plant our onions, tomatoes, they import from Tanzania. They import from Uganda. When they import, they are roaded.
They kill the market.
They kill our market.
Yes.
Now, I can tell my president to look for this because he can defend us from importing. When we import our food, we buy with our cash. Instead of exporting, we import. So that's the biggest challenge. Also, when we do the farming, we want to go to the market. The market in all of our country, I can say that, is divided to the owners, like Nakuru, Marigiti, Naivasha. Nowhere you can come, you as a new person, with your cabbage,
and
with
you
your
sell.
tomato, and you sell.
The local dialect would say, soko ina wenyewe.
Yeah. Every area is occupied by the peoples. So that one is very serious. They have to look for the national market. National market is in everybody. Even if my little daughter Carol, when she grow up, she want to go to the market. She has a freedom to go and sell her herself, not using broker, not using some watchmen, some what. There are so many challenges, especially when you come to sell your properties. We are struggling. We do the farming. After farming, we are unable to sell.
So somebody else enjoys the fruit of your labor.
Yeah, like let us say like Marigiti, like Naivasha, like in Nakuru County. If you go there with your lorry and say that I want to sell my cabbages, the area is occupied. And me, I do tell them most of the time when I go to the market, I want you to give me your title deed. If this area belongs to you, give me your title deed so that I cannot sell here.
You are such a tough.
Yeah, the problem is,
how many women would have such level of confidence?
Very few.
Very few. Even you can see Akajos telling you, odoa hii mizigo hapa, kuna mwenyewe, kuna mwenye anausia hapa. Sasa unajiuliza kama wewe ni Mkenyans, na wewe hiyo soko ni ya Kenyans as a whole. Kwa nini nisishukue mzigo kutoka Naivasha, nipeleke Marigiti mimi mwenyewe, na nisimame kwenye nataka, na niuze, bora tu nisisechelewe. If I'm late, if the market is full, I will understand. But si ati nikifika ninaambiwa hapana, usimwage hapa, usitadike hapa. All the markets are divided. Why should they divide our market? Why?
Okay, very good question. Waziri, respond. And I like the session, I like what has just happened because she's raising very fundamental challenges.
It's true.
And they depend on people like you.
That's right.
To address those issues.
It's true. I'll start with the very beginning. She talked about water for irrigation. Yes, that as a nation, and we all know this, crops don't need rain to grow. Crops need water. So there needs to be a conversation between various agencies in this country, between, for example, WARMA, the Ministry of Irrigation, the Ministries of Agriculture. We need to have a conversation. I must say that has not been happening. WARMA is in charge of all the water resources, but we often do not have a lot of close dialogue with them. It's mostly sometimes, often, it gets antagonistic, controlling payments and so on and so forth. There, like Judy has raised a point that in the rainy season, there's a lot of water flowing out. There's opportunity to collect the water, keep it, and the farmers can use it.
Yeah.
So upfront, I would say that from a policy perspective, we need to do more in linking relevant agencies to talk to each other and come up with common solutions for farming communities. In Nakuru County, I would say that, of course, led by our Governor, Honorable Lee Kinyanjui, we are trying in many ways to see how this can happen. I personally work very closely with my colleague, Engineer Ngeno, in water, to see how we can resolve some of these challenges in terms of bringing water closer to the people. We currently have an on-running project with the Minister for Irrigation to see how we can share resources and distilled water pans, dig new ones, share resources, and see how we can open up more spaces for water. Correctly said, water is what we need to grow our crops.
Not rain.
We don't need rain.
Yeah.
We need to collect the rain and use it effectively, and then thereafter then grow the crops throughout the year like Judy is doing on her farm.
They say, before you continue, they say in Kenya, this is the country where at one point we are complaining of floods.
Yes.
The next month we are complaining of drought.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think just taking it forward from there, at a policy level, the agencies that are supposed to take care of these matters need to sit around a table and come up with a common solution. I think that is something that we can do and do quickly. On the next level, Judy talked about markets. Marketing is a big challenge in the way that agriculture is configured. If you look at the ministries of agriculture, usually we have the Ministry of Agriculture and we have the Ministry of Trade.
Yes.
Markets fall under trade.
Yeah.
So
that's
again,
a different level.
yes. So again, that also structurally it creates another gap. So the way that Judy expresses that a farmer cannot walk into a market and sell their crop or their produce is true across many of the spaces that we are in. And what she talked about, the capture of the space by other entities, is the whole system where we have agents working, becoming a go-between between the farming community and the market, or in my mind I'm saying between the production and the money.
Oh, yeah.
It's always a link between production and the money. And that is a
So
big...
a lot of games are played where the money is.
Yes, and that space, I would clearly say, is very male-dominated.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, on the production side, you find a lot of women. In that agency space and into the market, you find a lot of men playing in that field.
Yeah.
And it's strong women like Judy who are able to break some of those barriers. So the question for me is, or what I think could be a possible solution, is that we need to configure our market to ease the stress of the producer and reduce those barriers that stop the producer from actually articulating a market.
Yeah.
One of the ways that can easily be done is larger farmers like Judy are able to speak on their own behalf and take care of that space.
Yeah.
Smaller holder farmers may not be able to do that. For the smaller holder farmers, the best option, a quick win, is cooperation. Come up with a group and engage the market.
Yeah.
At together.
Yeah.
Now, at the level of those agencies, I think there's opportunity to use the legal mechanism and also engage effectively with the current laws around marketing and see how we can break some of those agencies and allow women and allow men and women farmers to be able to link almost directly with the market. Of course, it would be confusion for every farmer to arrive in the morning with a truck, all right? But it doesn't have to be so difficult that, again, you're totally removed from that space.
And I think it could be even deliberate, that you're deliberately, they make it so difficult for
Obviously,
you to get to the market. So
I think
you
anywhere where we have resources and people are competing for those resources and that space is not legally articulated, that would happen. That the stronger voice, the stronger person, the more endowed person would
capture that
They do,
space.
yeah.
Yes. I can imagine Judy in action. Today you look
Yeah.
at her all adorned and nails done, and you'd not meet the same face when she's fighting for space in the market and trying to prove her point. But then Zaina, I also want you to add your addition to, we are looking for solutions on how to bridge this gap. And Waziri has shared some very beautiful insights on what could be possible going forward and what is even currently happening. What would be your insights as well? You've interacted with these cases and you've seen these challenges, and I know that is the core of Merging Mundos. That is what you're trying to really turn around. So what is your addition to this particular conversation?
Well, really great points raised both by Judy and by Immaculate, and it gives you the entire perspective and possibly the entry point into understanding that in politics there's an agenda and there are priorities. And that agenda and those priorities don't always necessarily match with what what in this case a farmer like Judy and many others are looking for. So this is where we come in and the benefit of collaborating with a private sector entity, and we come in and we say, okay, well, where do we come in to fill that gap? And what's something that we've recognized that would actually support in bringing politics together with the actual needs? We hosted, with the endorsement of the Governor of Nakuru and with the full collaboration and support of the Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries of Nakuru County, a pilot 3 weeks ago where 50 women farmers started to make the transition in their mindset into becoming agripreneurs and champions of agripreneurship in Nakuru County. And we recognize that in them coming together for the first time, there was a power in community. And within that community, the power and the responsibility to start taking on problem solving. So sometimes we come together, and we've seen and heard this in many instances, where as Kenyans we come together and we love forums where we are expressing all our issues and expecting somebody else to solve the problem for us. So what came out very strongly when these 50 women came together on one day was they put forward themselves values to operate within community. And they said support, growth, leadership and respect. And within that framework talked about, okay, look, within us we have the capacity to find the solutions to marketing. Within us we have the capacity and the potential to find the solutions to supporting one another in peer reviews and constructive criticism so that we're able to grow one another. So one of the elements that we're looking at in terms of a solution is once we come together in community, why don't we're going to change the focus of the forums where we come together to problem-solving forums, because we have great minds. And I know that many of the 50 champions that were trained in the pilot are watching today and are willing role models and are willing ambassadors in their sectors. And that's exactly what it takes.
And they have solutions. They're the ones who know the problems.
But they figure that out for themselves.
They have solutions for themselves. Look at the example that Judy has just given about the water issue. She has given us the landscape and a good example of what can work and what is not working, because they know the area, they know where the shoe is pinching, and they can give you these ideas. But then I'll come to you, Judy, but then Zaina still, how do you curtail this information to that farmer who may not be at that space of understanding law, understanding policy, understanding the business model, you know, all these complex terms that are aimed at making agriculture organized? How do you curtail this information for that farmer? It could be a smallholder farmer or just somebody who's been there for a while, to really understand the nitty-gritties of what this whole agenda is all about. How do you make that happen?
Totally, and there are two areas that we're looking at specifically within our model. First is the full integration of extension service officers. We have, and you can give us the numbers, Waziri, but over 400 in Nakuru County alone, that who are accessible and whose entire role is to make their expertise accessible to the local producer. So as part of our model, we're looking at further developing the expertise of the agricultural extension officers. And we noticed, because as part of the pilot, 63 of the high-level managers also participated in an exercise of team building and self-growth. And what was clear, what came out clearly, is that every single one of them is doing this out of a passion to serve. That's incredible, and that's something that element of serving in community, for community, as community, is a really African value which we ought to be exporting across the world. So it's integrating extension service officers, okay, most of whom are also practicing in their own shambas, and two, looking at information and communication through outlets. So we work with entities like Smart Farmer Magazine, for example, who are, and others who are tailoring the information in terms of case studies to inspire others. And the third is technology, looking at affordable and reliable applications where every farmer who's on their cell phone is able to receive on a daily basis a tip. And another element, and I'm sure Waziri will emphasize on this, is actually a call center in Nakuru County, which they're setting up, where government extension officers are sitting on one end of a phone for farmers to call in, to access.
Like some sort of a customer.
So solutions are plenty, and we're moving them forward, having done what? Having spoken and listened to
the farm.
And I've spoken about the model of South-South cooperation. We're not here to impose anything. We're here to look at what's adaptable, to look at what's feasible, and to look at what's going to make the actual meaningful difference.
Waziri, I'm sure you have something to add on that, but the aspect of technology, something Judy mentioned, she needs machines. Like even at her level, she needs to take it a notch higher.
It's true.
Yes,
it's true. We, as a nation, are very unlikely to feed ourselves on the whole. The digging with the whole has to change. Of course, we know that our farmer is aging, and not many of the youth really want to get the hoe and go dig in the field. So mechanization is the future. We just must mechanize agriculture. And we know machines are expensive. We know not everybody can own a machine. And that's where we are saying that, for example, how can we have corporate machine hire? Can we pool our machines in a county, let's say, for example, in Nakuru County, and have farmers hire them out? Not every farmer needs to have a tractor.
But you can hire
when you need it. So it's a whole business model of hiring out machines. Nakuru County, we are very lucky to have the Agriculture Mechanization Services with an excellent team of agriculture engineers led by Engineer Waithaka. And one of the things that the conversations we are having is we are taking out a register of every machine owner in Nakuru County and looking forward to have farmers calling, I want a baler. Where is the nearest baler to my farm? Sort of like an Uber for machinery, so that we link the owner of the machine with the needs of the community. And I think that's a model that can work anywhere.
We can start there.
We can start there and see how that grows. So machines, not every farmer needs to own a machine. Can we have a model that allows us to pool machines and share? That is one.
I'm really running out of time for this conversation, and a lot that I have to focus on. But there's an issue I want us to talk about before we leave this set this morning. It's a topic that is for another day, but it's the issue of land. And we cannot talk about agriculture without talking about land ownership for women. As a quick thought, how do we make women thrive in the market when we are not giving them an opportunity and a good environment for them to own land? Lands are owned by men. And you're working on somebody's land. So how do we make that possible as we bring this conversation to a close?
I like something that Judy said. There's something that Judy said that I think for me would be the answer to what you're saying. She said that you have to know yourself and do what you must do. I'm thinking, and I think I'm not wrong in saying that you do not have to be the owner of the land to produce food. No, it's not necessarily true. If you have access rights and those access rights are protected, then you can produce food. In Kenya, we also have a lot of idle land. And I'm not trying to say that women should not own land. We should encourage the conversation on ownership of land.
Yes.
But in the short term, we can't say that we cannot produce food because we don't have land.
It's possible
That
still.
is not a correct conversation. The conversation is here is how can we make land as accessible as possible to as many people as possible, including women, in a legal framework that allows them to produce effectively and sustainably without damaging the same land.
All right.
All right?
Thank you so much.
That was
Waziri.
my issue.
Thank you so much,
Yes.
Waziri. Judy, I want to talk to a woman who wants to be like you. You, as your final word, what do you tell them? Then I'll come to you, Zaina, for your final word.
All I can tell women, I can tell them to go to there is Women Enterprise Fund money. They rush there, they leave the tray, they start their small business and they start saving. When they start saving, after saving, they'll do the work. They can hire brand, after that, they can buy their own.
So there are so many ways.
There are many
so many
ways.
ways.
Yeah.
I do tell women, if you are planting 2 debes of potatoes, they can make, even if they have nothing,
Okay.
2 debes can produce you 2 bags of potatoes, whereby 2 bags of potatoes is 10,000.
Wow.
10,000.
Wow.
We can do that weekly. We can do that weekly.
And that should be about 40 in a month?
Ah,
40K.
in a month.
Wow.
They are rich.
Women
Alright,
are
rich, but they don't want to work.
All right.
Now
Thank you
they
so
can do
much.
Carrots also, they can do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Judy. Zaina, your final words.
Sure, and I'll leave us with 2 messages. One is that every conversation that we have about empowering a woman involves our men. So
Yeah.
this is a conversation about women empowerment, and the focus has been on women, with 4, empowered women involved in the conversation. And it is made possible when we talk about land, when we talk about markets, when we talk about business, when we talk about equity in the family. It is about involving fully our men.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second, I leave to our women and future women agripreneurs. I believe in you. Believe in yourself.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time, all of you. You ladies, I can talk to you the whole day, but unfortunately we've run out of time. That has been quite an inspiring conversation we've had this morning, talking about women in business. I know wherever you are, you now know your space and you now understand your role in making the environment in the agricultural sector better for a woman in Kenya to thrive and be like the likes of Judy Wangeshi, who was among my guests this morning, celebrated having earned a national recognition as the best farmer in the women's category in our country. A lot of lessons and examples to learn from her journey and her experience. Thank you so much. We're taking a short break. We're coming right back. The Good Morning Kenya show continues. A lot of matters happening in the country, including the ongoing crackdown on people who have not complied with the famous Mishuki rules, and a lot that has happened as commuters have been affected in so many parts of this country. That conversation is coming up with matters health as well. Later on in the program, we'll be talking about diabetes this morning. So do stay with us. We're taking a short break.